Welcome to Monday Motivations, 52 Weeks to a More Purposeful You. Every week we go through another topic in this book, and this week is topic number 17. So week 17, the topic is intention, and I hope I don't cry when I introduce Amber Barnes. Oh my gosh. Amber and I met at CTI, the Coaching Training Institute, when I started my coaching certification journey, and we shared rooms together. We had like intense fights. We've grown so much. Like, I've never met another person that is so much like me. Like, I learn the material of anything and I just jump in feet first. And that's how Amber was. I mean, we were just, you're amazing. So that's my intro for her, but for the rest of the world that wants to know more of the specifics. So Amber Barnes is a corporate trainer. She is founder and chief education officer of StartHuman, a leadership and culture development practice on a mission to re-humanize the workplace. Amber is trained in Amber is a trained organizational development practitioner and educator. She has an MS in organization development and a BS in elementary and special education. She's certified to facilitate Brené Brown's work and Blanchard, as well as several personality and behavior assessments. Amber is a certified CTI, Coaching Training Institute, and International Coaching Federation, ICF. She's trained with Conscious Leadership Group and Susan Fowler. She is trauma-informed with training in both internal family systems and somatic trauma therapy modalities. That's a lot. Here's what I would say for anyone that's listening is like, what? If you have humans in your life, if you are a human, get into one of Amber's workshops, coaching programs, follow her on Facebook, Instagram, enjoy the show. But yeah, Amber, you are a beautiful human, and I am blessed to call you my friend.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on the show. And so what did you think about this message on intention?
I love it because, well, I'm kind of biased. I've lived my life this way for the last 15 years.
Yeah.
I think much like you, had an opportunity to be introduced to coaching and development opportunities fairly early in my career. And this idea of being intentional has been in my world for a long time.
Mhm.
So I live by this, especially the intention, impact, and then notice what's in the gap.
Mhm.
So it's how I do my life, and it's how I also invite clients and people I work with to explore their lives also.
Yeah, so the very first quote, it says, quality is never an accident. It is always the result of high intention, sincere effort, intelligent direction, and skillful execution. It represents the wise choice of many alternatives. William A. Foster. You've for over 15 years, you can consciously say that you've lived as much of an intentional life as you possibly can. Have you ever been sideswiped with like, I thought I was being intentional, but I was unconscious, or
I think what has happened is I've intended for something to be a certain way, but I've been unconscious about the ways in which my own behaviors or my own ways of being are moving me away from that impact.
mm,
So, which can be a lot to unpack.
mm,
Yeah, so I'll just pause there.
yeah. Yeah. So for people watching, let's kind of go down to ground level. Like, when we say the topic is intention, how would you define or kind of describe this topic?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's having a clear path of where I want to go. So it's a doing part and also who and how I want to be. So for me, it's a balance of doing and being.
Mhm.
And it can be setting a goal. I mean, that's an intention. It can be setting a vision. That can also be an intention. It can also be having purpose. But it's something that I'm imagining that I want for myself or that I want to achieve.
Mhm.
And, usually sometime out in the future, which it could be, I set an intention for our call today. And
Mm.
so it's just taking a moment to be mindful about what we want to do and how we want to be. That's how I define it.
Mhm. Do you ever have days where you look back and you're like, I wasn't as intentional as yeah, what do you think contributes to, yeah, you're laughing, so talk. You got something there.
Well, I mean, I'm a human being, so
What?
I know, right? So I get reactive like everyone else. I sometimes get caught in victimhood and like, feeling like things are happening to me, so I'm just reacting.
Mhm.
I get caught in busyness or other things. And so I think, like every other human being, sometimes I lose sight that I am at the source of my experiences. Like I am at the source of outcomes in my life.
Mm.
So I get off track, I think, like anyone else.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Well, I wrote down those two things. So basically what I heard you say was that busyness and then reactivity could be two pitfalls that would block anyone from being intentional.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think this relates to reactivity, but even being in like a state of threat, like whatever that looks like, can then trigger reactivity. But
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, from your bio and then just from knowing you over the years as you've acquired, different modalities and trainings, what would you say has been I think I know what you're going to say, but because we talked a little bit before, but what would you say has been the most helpful when it comes to the reactivity and like victimhood and that sort of thing?
Yeah, well, it's been a few things. So I think the simplest one has been the conscious leadership model. This idea of knowing when we're above and below the line, when we're coming from threat versus a place of learning.
Mhm.
And then I think also, I'm a huge fan of IFS.
Mhm.
Um, really understanding and connecting with, we call it self energy, which for people watching or listening that don't know what that is, we all have these core qualities that make up ourself. And so being so familiar with what that is.
Keep talking. I'm going to grab something. Keep talking. I could hear you.
Okay. And then knowing that when I get reactive, you got it. Yes. Those are qualities. We all have them. um, and then being self-aware enough to go, oh, I'm in reactive energy, like because I have parts of me that want to keep me safe.
Mhm.
Whether they're on a mission, by having great plans and strategies, and then something happens and I get hurt, and then it's like, oh no, now we have to make you better.
Mhm.
So I have both proactive and reactive strategies that can take me out of intention, but those are two big models or modalities that have helped raise my awareness and understanding. So
Yeah. Okay. So conscious leadership, which there's tons of free resources out there. If you Google conscious leadership, I love I don't think they do exactly the drama triangle, but it's essentially the same three roles as
yeah.
the drama triangle. Yeah. And then IFS, so that's internal family systems work. So you've done a lot of work to help manage trauma. You're trauma informed. How would you describe for people listening, um, we're talking about, hey, be intentional with your life, but when we experience trauma and we have, these threat reaction, reactivity going on, how do we live intentionally when, we get these threat responses from trauma?
Yeah. It's a good question. I know for me, and this probably started 15 years ago, was just getting really clear about who I am and who I want to be in the world. And I know that I'm not someone who wants to continue a cycle of trauma. Like, I don't hurt people, hurt people. And I know in my bones that I don't want to intentionally hurt people. And that means that I'm taking responsibility for doing my healing. And so for me, that's where it kind of starts, is having clarity about who I am and what I stand for. And that in and of itself is about being intentional. But I think the second part is a lot of grace, because I am human and I'm just as susceptible to all the humanness that everyone else is. And so it's being gentle and kind with myself when I make mistakes, and having a way to come back to center, which is, this is not who I want to be, or this is not who I am, making amends if I need to, and then getting myself back on track. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you talked about, hurt people. So really being like, who am I? Who do I want to be? And taking responsibility for our healing.
Mm-hmm.
I can personally say my journey in pursuing healing, it is like, I give so many kudos to people that are at least like, I want to be on the healing journey, because it's very frustrating, because it's like, oh, let's go to counseling, or let's hire a coach, or like, there's like a lot of different tools and modalities. And I wouldn't, for me, not one method has worked.
Yeah.
It's trying different therapists, trying different, modalities within their world. And I know over the years, you and I, we're constantly sharing with it. Well, have you, like, remember when I found the drama triangle? I'm like, have you? Oh my! And then we're like, oh my gosh, our minds are exploding. And so yeah, so I guess I just want to encourage people that are watching. I love it. I just turned 43 a couple days ago, and it's like, yay. But I'm like, I realize how much trauma and brokenness and hurt, I've not only survived, but continually working on. And then I think there's two more parts to this, is how, even on our journey, because you and I met in, I think, 2010. Was it 2010?
I think so.
So since 2010, when I think back to when we first met, and we were already like, we're growing and we're being intentional, and it's like, how much more injury have each of us experienced, and compounding trauma, right? Like, man, if I only had that little bit of trauma back from 2010, or like,
Yeah.
and so I guess, kind of the thing I'm thinking is just to encourage people to keep layering tools, modalities. I'm working with the coach right now, Allison Crow, and she's been talking about how even meditation can almost be re-triggering for somebody that maybe has ADD, or like, not all of these things work. Like, talk therapy doesn't work for everyone.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of EMDR, but my husband's deaf, and it's a trigger for him because he can't hear the little thing, or it's like, there's other layers. So just, I just really want to encourage people to try and to layer different things. I don't know if you have anything that you want to add to that point of just.
Yeah. I think the thing I'd add, and you're alluding to this, is there's a lot of myth out there about things should be easy and things should feel comfortable, and it should be fast. Whether we're consciously or unconsciously, acknowledging this, we buy into this stuff every single day. And
Mhm.
so giving ourselves grace that it's normal as a human to be drawn to what's easy and what's comfortable. This path isn't easy and it's not comfortable. And that's where the growth happens. And so to stay the course and also to be gentle with ourselves. There are times when I've been like, I'm done for a little bit. Like, I need a break.
I'm gonna just walk around triggered all the time. Get out of my way. No, I'm just kidding.
But there's just a time
Yeah.
where it's like, you know what? I've done enough for now.
Yeah.
So,
My
um,
husband's actually told me that before. Like, I remember him at one point, he's like, I think you should like take a break from working on yourself. I do themes every month.
yeah.
So I do a theme for the year, and then every month I have a theme and goals and all this. But I remember one month he's like, I think that your theme this month should be you don't do your goal tracking worksheet, you don't get coaching, you don't read another book, you don't. And I remember I did what he suggested, and it was like absolutely needed.
Yeah, I think what it brings up is that I know this is true for me. I definitely am a recovering perfectionist, which means I can get a process addiction going
Yeah.
on. This do, 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 do. And so it's nice sometimes, I think, to have that reminder that sometimes we just need to be and we just need to live into being for a little while, that too is growth and that too is, part of the journey.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, like maybe a little bit of calm and connected.
Yeah.
Like I just, you know what, I'm enough right where I'm at.
Yeah. Yeah. I did this great mindfulness class last year, and it was beautiful. We went into, and I explore this from like not a religious perspective, but more of like a way of living life. But we dug into the Four Noble Truths of Buddhist practices. And I'll tell you, I was so disappointed to hear that one of the sources of suffering is this craving to become. I was like, what?
This is my life.
This is how I've lived my life for so many years, is just wanting to be better and wanting to be better. And a friend said to me at dinner, 2020 was a really hard year for me for many reasons, and it dripped into 2021 also. But I remember her saying to me, I was telling her about all the things I was going to do, and she was like, she looked me in the eyes and she's like, Amber, you are wonderful as you are. Like, you don't need to keep chasing being something else. Like, and it really hit me, and it was like, oh, so what's this balance of wanting to live an intentional life and also not constantly striving to be more or different from who we are?
Mm,
Yeah.
that that's key.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I feel like you mentioned being gentle and grace with ourselves. And I also think relationships.
Yeah. Yes. And knowing when boundaries
Yeah.
and like, yeah, those have been some hard lessons in the last few years, but knowing when it's like, I've been gentle enough, I've given enough grace. The next step is a boundary of like, we're done.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
done. Like, this is no longer my place, like, or I don't belong here anymore. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And what do you think are some good indicators for yourself or maybe even other people? Like, when do we know we should be done?
Yeah. Well, going back to the theme of intention, here, this is just something for me.
Yeah.
I want to surround myself with intentional beings. I've learned that it is incredibly dangerous, at least for me, to be in relationship with or relating to closely with people who run around just doing whatever they want without any intentions, and then resulting in no care for their impact.
Mm,
So that's one red flag. Like when I learn that that's someone's way of being and that's how they're committed to being, consciously or unconsciously, I'm like, this is not a person I want to be in relationship with.
mhm,
And then I think the second is when I realize that I'm caring about something more than someone else,
mm, mhm,
or I'm doing more than like 100% of what's mine. That too is my cue to, I mean, it doesn't mean I don't give feedback or,
mhm,
attempts to be seen, but there comes a point in which it's like, I can't care about this more than you do, or
mhm,
like, I can't carry your weight and mine.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are really two big things. And one of the things that I've always cherished about our relationship is how we have, like, when you're growing and you're practicing new things and like, we've both showed up in our friendship like playing full out.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and part of playing full out is we are going to hurt each other, like, and we've both done it to each other, and then we've practiced, correcting it and reconnecting and making it right. And I just, it's a really big gift when you have friends that you can have hiccups with. And what do you think about that, relationships and the grace and the gentleness, the bounce back? What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the beauty of shared intention when two people are aligned in what they're wanting, both for the relationship and then also for themselves. That really to me creates a glue that makes it worth it to then, when we make mistakes, it makes us stronger.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, that's even what the research shows. Like, conflict is actually really good for strengthening relationships. It sucks sometimes, a lot of the time. Um, but I think where there's shared intention, it's even more of a space for grace and for circling back and for trying new things. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, and it kind of goes back to something you said earlier about, I wrote it down, that this healing path is not easy, it's not fast, it's not comfortable. And it makes me think of that good old book, A Road Less Traveled, Scott Peck.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with, relationships. It's not always fast, it's not always easy, it's not always comfortable. And then when our parts start showing up, so maybe we can, for people listening, can you give them just like a foundational explanation about parts and parts works? Because I barely started learning IFS in January, so it's like 1 month. But I remember when you started doing this work several years ago.
Yeah.
I wish I would have got on the bandwagon back then, but I didn't know.
No, the thing I'm learning is like we come to whatever it is, like when we're ready.
When we're ready.
And, being ready means a lot of things. Like it means time and capacity, it means the right teacher, it means the right people. Like, things really, I believe that the world is our ally. And so things come together when we're most open to them and ready.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's still plenty of things that I'm like, not now.
Yeah. Wait
No,
till my 60s or 50s.
yeah, not now. But yeah, the idea of the core idea of IFS, which we talked about earlier, is that we all have these qualities that make up the self. And see, there's many different words for this. I'm just gonna say self, but
Mhm.
we all have this in common as human beings. We're all born with it, every single one of us, which are the 8 qualities that yep, we all have this within us. And then as we, go through life, we have these things that hurt us, that cause pain, normal parts of life, things that I wish weren't normal. And they create these woundings that we then have behaviors that we manifest to try to keep ourselves safe. Because this is what the brain does. Like the brain's number one job is like, keep this human being safe.
Mhm.
Even if it's not a real threat. You know, back in the day, it was a saber-toothed tiger, dinosaur, whatever. And now it's like, keep your feelings safe, keep your ego safe, keep your sense of worth safe, keep your identity safe.
The reputation,
Yeah, all that stuff.
image.
So yeah. So then we develop these things. There's kind of two kinds of protective parts. You know, one are the reactive ones, the
Mhm.
firefighters, which we get hurt and we've learned all these ways, like numbing. I think we've, thanks to Brené, we know a lot about numbing now, but we
Mhm.
drink, we shop, we gossip, we get busy, we do many things so that we don't have to feel what we're feeling. We start fights with people, we shut down, we isolate, we people please. You know, we have all these reactive ways of being to deal with hurt, and those are our firefighter parts. You know, and then we have all of these, brilliant strategic planner parts that are like, how do I keep this being from ever feeling that hurt again? How do I design your life so that you never have to feel the pain of what you felt, at these various points? And so that's my perfectionism part, one of them. I have many parts that try to keep me safe. Even things like, I can remember coming out of a hard relationship going, I will never date again. I am done.
Yeah.
And I was like, hello, protector part. Like,
Yeah.
okay.
I like you.
Yeah, there's some wisdom here. Like,
Mhm.
and I totally see where you're coming from. And this is a noble intention that you have. And
Mhm.
also, let's maybe have a chat about this.
Mhm. Yeah.
So,
Are the planner parts, are they called managers?
yeah,
Okay, so the firefighters are the reactive ones, and the firefighters might do more of the obvious unhealthy behaviors.
yeah, but also some of
Okay.
the less obvious ones too, like
Okay,
getting small,
yeah,
like
being
disappearing.
polite.
Hmm.
Okay, and then
Yeah,
the managers, they're going to be more of the one of my friends, she called it like substitute teachers.
sure.
Yeah, so they're the ones that are going to be more like dominant.
They can be, yeah. I
Mhm.
think there's also like quiet, like I have a protector that is like, and it's a manager part that's like, we're just gonna meditate and do yoga and,
Yeah,
you know, life will be zen. We're gonna go for the blissed out zen life. And
yeah.
that too is a manager part, which is a quieter one.
Mhm.
But
Yeah,
these
and
are the good
appears to
ones.
be a very good strategy. Like that's good for you. Like you'll never have a heart attack.
Yeah, but I'll also never, I'll
Yeah.
never take care of responsibilities. I'll never probably be in relationship. I'll never, pay attention to the things that matter.
Mhm.
Um, so it's the manager parts are really ones that are trying to sort of have control.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's the word, control.
yeah. Which it can be quiet or it can be loud.
Yeah.
Or
Okay.
somewhere in between.
Mhm.
But yeah, and then we have these wounded, the language here is called an exile, but we
Mhm.
have these parts of us that have been so deeply hurt that they're holding all this pain from experiences, and sometimes they get re-hurt, by new things. And so our parts kind of rally around these exiles to keep them safe and to keep us safe. And so really there's a noble intention there.
Mhm.
And also sometimes it doesn't keep us in alignment with our intentions.
Mhm.
Or it doesn't keep me in alignment with my intentions.
Mhm.
So,
Okay, so when we're thinking about living intentional lives and we embrace that um, we all have, life experiences that have impacted us in certain ways. This new modality or new for me, IFS and like knowing our parts, it's a way for us to still be able to be intentional and really have self compassion. So if I know that I have an exile part that um, gets her feelings hurt very deeply, I can be wise in which kinds of people I go around, or, what types of things I post on social media, or,
Yeah.
and not from a protector standpoint, but just from a conscious
Mhm.
and intentional place.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just this. I think you're a big fan of Viktor Frankl too. So
Yes,
I'll share
yes.
one of my most favorite quotes. Like, I think of Viktor Frankl as like this virtual mentor because so much of his work guides me. But he has this quote, and it's this, and I might butcher it a little, but between stimulus and response, there's this space. And
Mhm.
in that space is our ability to choose. And our ability to choose is like the last of our human freedoms. Like, no
Yep,
one can ever take that from us.
yep.
And so, I mean, this is something I really have just made an anchor for life, is that I am the source of my experiences, my behaviors, my choices, my outcomes.
Mhm.
Like, that's all on me. I don't always get to choose what happens in my world, but I get to choose how I respond. And so that goes back to living an intentional life. Like, that's the last of my freedoms, and it's the freedom that I protect, at
Mhm.
all costs, is like I get to choose. I always get to choose. I always have a choice.
And that's the tagline for Volition.
Yeah.
You always have a choice.
Yeah.
Like, and find choice in every situation. Like, and I think that truth is something that helps us walk out our miracle and walk out our healing, and choosing that road less traveled, because we don't have to fall into apathy of, we might have been victimized. Like, they're literally, the role of the victim, it's not always a like your fault position. But
Yeah.
then what are we going to do?
Yeah.
Are
Yeah.
we going to use it as our excuse, or are we going to take it and start walking out, healing? And I'm taking a class right now on the problem of suffering and evil. And
Mm.
it's, Viktor Frankl, he's, a lot of his work is in the class, and it is at a Christian school. So then you weave in, there are sometimes religious practices and beliefs that make suffering worse.
Yeah.
It's like the devil doesn't make us do it, people. Like, we have a choice. Like,
Yeah.
there, and you mentioned it earlier, the balance between intention, and then you said, I know I wrote it down. I wrote so many notes. You said like the balance of doing and being, but you said something about the balance of intention versus,
Impact? Was it impact?
maybe that sounds good too. I'll take that one as well.
Great. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so, in closing, is there anything else, any last words of wisdom from Amber Barnes about intention?
I will say this, before, in the early part of my career, I worked in the funeral industry, and I worked there for 7 years. And what I walked away with from that is that I don't want to be a person who ends my life feeling like I didn't like play full out, and like I wasted this life. Like, I want to live up to my full potential as a human being. And I know that that's not everyone's interest, and I don't have judgment for that. I think my wisdom is that when we choose to be mindful and intentional about who we are and how we are, that's one way that we can change the world. It's
Mhm.
just one simple thing that we can do to stop cycles of hurting, to stop cycles of trauma. And so, even just the simple act of taking into an interaction, like, what's my intention for this? What do I want to do, and how do I want to be? That simple, small, but also big thing
Mhm.
can change the world if we're all doing it together. And
Mhm.
so it doesn't have to be these big sweeping things. I know not everyone will choose this, masochistic path of healing that we've been on. And that's okay. That's totally okay. It's sort of like, what are you willing to do and where can you start? And making those simple choices or just taking a mindful moment to consider intention can be one way to make the world better. So, yeah.
Well, my takeaway from our time together, when you mentioned that you set your intention for our time together, I've actually I've been noticing a struggle and just up and down with me having like frustration, annoyance, impatience, busy. I posted a Facebook post last night and I was trying to like cheerlead myself. Oh, we didn't even start talking about toxic positivity. That's going to have to be the next one. But I, it's like part of maybe why I've been feeling very busy and stressed and like lots of these kind of like agitated experiences. I haven't been setting my intention like I used to. Like you said, I really I mean, that just kind of like hit me in a good way when you're like, and that's for me, it's also prayer, like just pausing and just being like, God, please, how my prayer's gone down too. So it's like that pause, that Viktor Frankl quote, between stimulus and action.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, is that choice. And
Yeah.
I think my word for February, today's February 1st, so I still have time to decide, but I think it's slow.
I love that.
Going down.
Yeah. Well, and you just said something too that is such a good reminder. There's not a right way to do intention. It can be prayer, it can be contemplation, it can be meditation, it can be journaling, it can be telling someone verbally.
Yeah.
There's so many paths to get there. There's not a right way. And so choose a path that works.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've just had the best time with you.
This has been good. Let's do it again.
Yes, we will. If I can get you off the mountains. And for anybody that doesn't know, so what is where can people reach you? I mean, are we talking Instagram? Are we talking Facebook? I know you're booked out, so if people want to hire you, like there's a wait list, which is a great place to be. But where should people reach you?
Yeah, I mean, social media is great. Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Our website's great, starthuman.com.
Okay, starthuman.com. That's probably the best place to go.
Our list. We're planning some really big things, so
I think you should do some retreats. So for those of you who don't know, Amber is like an insane, like mountain climber, mountain biker, hiker, everything. And you're up in Reno, so you just are surrounded with mountains, and boy, do you use the potential of those mountains. I live vicariously through you on your Instagram. I see all your beautiful pictures, and I'm like, oh, so gorgeous. So everybody connect with Amber on starthuman.com. And Amber, thank you for sharing your love and your intention and your presence. So
thank you, Corry. Good to be with you. Thank you for having me.
Yes. And everyone join us next week. Week 18 is flow. So, and that's going to be with Rick Vandermeiden. So thank you, everyone, and see you next week.